Hey, so my idea with this video is to just kind of do a roundup of reading activities, and I'm basically going to give you a name of an activity and a quick description, and then I'll link to more information in the description of this video. So if there's something you're like, ooh, that sounds kind of interesting, deep dive down below. So if that sounds good to you, let's jump right into it. Hi, my name is Ashley, aka Señor de Spanish, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I try really hard to create easy to use resources to save you time and energy as you're lesson planning, so that's what you'll find here on my channel. If you haven't been here before, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button and ringing that bell so you get notified of all new content I create for you in the future. Okay, so I promised a roundup of reading activities. I would like these to be as low prep as possible. Most of them are like no extra materials kind of things and very low tech, although there are a few that include like a random extra material that you might need to bring from home and you probably don't just like have sitting around school. Maybe you do. And a few of them are tech based. So let's just get right into it, and I'm just gonna rattle them off. Ooh, important to note that most of these are not my activities. They are things that I have encountered in various places, and I will make sure to list the person that they came from in the description of this video below, if applicable. Some of them like have been around for so long that I'm not really sure who came up with them first. So if you know, like, yes, this person was the first person, please feel free to comment so I can update that with the appropriate information. Okay, with that being said, first one I want to share is from Wooly, Señor Wooly, and it's called Active Close. So what you do is you have a word cloud and you're either playing a song, right, Señor Wooly, or you can just read the text for your students and you pause. And whenever you pause, students are going to race to be the first to touch the word that comes next on the word cloud. And if you want to, you can have them score points and, you know, whatever, but if not, just keep going. It's during the reading activity. Okay, this next one is from Señora Jota Jota. It's called Citing the Text Evidence. So you give students a claim and they have to either agree or disagree with the claim, but they have to back up what they say with evidence from the text. So if you say, you know, the boy was happy, they would say like agree or disagree because, and then pull a sentence in from the text. Okay, next one is close reading annotation, and I actually learned this from the middle school that it was my first job, where they were like really doing a lot of reading things. So basically you give the students a set of symbols to annotate the text, and Martina Bex has a really awesome blog post with specific symbols you could use for this. But basically as they're reading the text, they're gonna mark like with a star, ooh, this part is really important, or with a question mark, oh hey, I have some questions about this, you know, that sort of different thing. And then a nice spin on this that comes from a different blog post from Martina's blog is called an annotation walk. So after they've done the annotation activity, you've hung like butcher paper around that has like the star that says like this part is important because, and they're gonna go write the sentence that they marked on their text on the wall. And then you can kind of do a whole class discussion that says, oh, you know, this person thought this part was very important, this person thought this part was very important, which part was more important in class A, why do you think this part was more important than that part? Or, you know, do you agree or disagree with their thoughts? Any sort of thing like that. So the next one is from Señora Jota Jota, and it's kind of building on the other one by her that I shared, only this one's called Cutting Up the Text Evidence. So first you give students a blank sheet of paper and a set amount of time to illustrate a scene from the story. Then after 15-20 minutes, like really nice illustration, you give them a piece of the text and some scissors and some glue, and they have to cut apart the text and like prove where in the story this scene that they illustrated happened. And you could have them swap drawings, you could have them do all sorts of different stuff with that. This next one is from Señora Chase. It's called Details, and I thought it was really cute. So you start off by doing like a timed writing activity where their goal is to retell the story. And you've got a buzzer system happening. So as they're writing, timer buzzes, they're gonna rotate their papers to the next person. They're gonna look at where they were and then pick up retelling the story. Okay. After you've done that, so after they've done the time writing, they're rotating their stories, they've all tried to do their best to retell the story, then we're gonna get into the game called Details. So what she does is she reads or tells a detail from the story, and the students are gonna look at that timed writing retell, and if that detail is in the story, they highlight it or underline it and then put a tally on the top for a point. And you do that over and over again with as many details from the story as you can think of, like as many different things, because each time you do that, they're going to be rereading and looking for more information. The next one is from Pablo M, and he called it Find the Spanish, and I loved it because it's super simple. So the students have a copy of the text, you say something in English, and the students listen to you and find where that is in Spanish in the story. And they can highlight it, they can underline it, whatever it is. Okay, I really liked this one. It's from CLAUDIA ELLIOT. It's called Illustrate the Answer. And so what she did is she put a bunch of questions up on the board that had to do with the reading, and instead of writing their response or speaking their response, they drew a little picture to illustrate the answer to each of them. And then of course, once you've done the drawings, there's all sorts of different things that you can do with those drawings, right? You could have them cut them apart, you could do some sequencing activities, you could do like a blind retell with that as the scaffolding tool, right? All sorts of different things, but just illustrate the answer to the questions that you've come up with. Okay, this next one is a woolly activity, but it actually pairs really nicely with the activity from Claudia that I just talked about. It is called In the Cards. So all it is that you, the teacher, say a sentence or read a scenario that has to do with that story, and the students choose the card that matches the description from the teacher. So if you already had the questions that they illustrated, now you know, okay, I can say all these different statements and they're going to find the card that corresponds. Another woolly activity is called In the Gutter. So students have two different images or two different scenes. Again, you could use the cards from the activity by Claudia, or you could use the stills that Woolly provides, or write scenes from a movie talk, anything like that. They choose two different ones, and the students have to describe what happens between those two images. Okay, this activity is from ERIN Coleman over at the Engaged Spanish classroom, and it is called La Lluvia. And basically what it is they have a bunch of different raindrops with different words or phrases, and students choose from the words or phrases in the raindrops to write sentences. So you could do this to like retell a story, you could do this to practice vocab or grammar or different structures. Lots of variety with that one. This next one is really simple. You just have your students make a mini book, and I actually have a YouTube video with a tutorial on how to do that, where you give them a blank sheet of computer paper and they fold it and it turns into this really cute little book, and you could use that to have them retell any story that you've been working with in class. Making predictions. This is actually a pre-reading activity, but I really like it. It's from Senora Hota Hota. And so what she does is she gives students a list of vocabulary words or chunks or phrases, and in English the students look at those words in the target language, and then in English they say, okay, this is what I think is going to happen in the story or in the movie or in the whatever it is, based on these words and phrases. And then right afterwards, you could do all sorts of things like, how close were you? Or, if you were wrong, come up with a story that does fit the scenario, any sort of creative post-reading activity as well. Bingo, and this is one, like kind of a twist on an oldie but a goodie. You give them words or phrases or things that they might hear in the story, and then you read the story, and as you're reading it, they mark off their bingo cards, and if they get a bingo, bingo. Pareja mentirosa is one of my favorite during reading activities where you want them to get more reps of the text and not be bored by reading it over and over again. So what happens is one student is going to read the text, and as they're reading the text, they're going to make intentional mistakes or changes. And while they're doing that, their partner is going to be listening and reading and following along. And anytime they hear one of those intentional changes, they're gonna yell mentirosa for pareja mentirosa. Super easy one, read and draw. It's pretty self-explanatory. Students read and then they draw. Ta-da! Read and screenshot is kind of a twist off of that. So you are going to prepare sentences that go with, if you have a music video that you've been working with, a movie talk, a Woolly video, any of those sorts of things, you're gonna write sentences and put each sentence on a slide. Then students are going to watch the video and look for the scenarios that are described in your sentences. They'll pause it, grab a screenshot, and throw it on the slides. Okay, we're going to talk about the most important sentence, then we're going to talk about different things you can do after you've done the most important sentence. So this is one I learned from Eric Richards at one of the TPRS conferences I've been to. Basically what you do is you give your students a number of sentences. So you might say, find the 10 most important sentences in this story. So they're going to read and reread and pick out the things that okay, how could you retell this story if you only had 10 sentences to do it? Okay, then you have them do that again. 5 most important sentences, 3 most important sentences, 1 most important sentence. You can stretch that part out or speed it up as much as you want to. Okay, so that's the most important sentence. I like to do that one in graduated levels. So they might start with just working by themselves, the 10 most important sentences. Then with a pair, they'll find the 5 most important sentences between their 2 sentences that they started with. Then their pair will work with a group to find, the 3 or the 1 most important sentence. And if you have more time, you could go from group to whole class then to decide which sentence is the most important, right? Again, lots of levels and lots of ways you stretch that one out. Okay, if you back that one up a little bit though, and you start with say, hey, find the 10 most important sentences, then we're going to use those 10 sentences for activities. So option 1 would be to do scrambled sentences, where you take those 10 sentences and you have them write each word from the sentence on a card, or just cut them apart on a piece of paper, and then they trade, and they have to put those words in order based on their reading. Another option after doing most important sentence would be to play Mi Lapis, and I have a full video where I explain Mi Lapis and different variations of ways you can play it, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But if you've done the most important sentence and say they have 10 sentences that they've decided are the most important, Now you can play Me Lapis with those sentences. So it's a zero prep game because you didn't have to come up with the sentences, do any writing, or do any copies first. Your students did that part for you. I'll make sure to link to my video explaining Me Lapis around here somewhere, so that way you can click and go check out how to play that and the options for variations and ways to change it up in your classes. The next one is called Sculpting Scenes. Basically, she gives her students Play-Doh and a set amount of time, and they have to illustrate a scene from the story in the Play-Doh. And then they walk around and they, write down what scene is happening, or they talk about what scene is happening on the other students' desks. Okay, next is a smash doodle. A smash doodle I learned of from Martina Beck's. Basically, students combine images and words to retell a story or a scene. This next one is from ERIN COLEMAN at the Engaged Spanish classroom, and it's called Sonidos Secretos. And I love it. If you've never tried this one, put this on your list of things to try ASAP. So basically what it is students are working in pairs, and they have little cards with either, like, it could be vocab words, it could be phrases, it could be whatever, like it could be chunks from your story. So one student has a card, they draw a card, and they're trying to get the other student to say what's on the card, but their partner is listening to music and they can't hear a word they're saying. So when they're reading the card, they have to really enunciate to try to get them to say whatever the word or phrase is. Super fun. The next one is called Sound Effect Reading. I have a full video explaining this one, but it's pretty simple. As you're reading or telling the story, different students have jobs to make different sound effects. Okay, this next one is called Story Towers. It's from Martina Beck's, but she said she found it on Pinterest. So there's your source. Basically, students need stacks of index cards. On one side of the card, they'll illustrate a sentence. On the other side, they write the sentence, and then they cut slits in the bottom of the cards, and they use those to build a tower out of the pieces of the story. Next is Tabata Timeline, and I have a full video explaining this, but basically what it is students write down events that happen in the story, and then they are going to sequence those different events, but there's a rotating and timed element involved. So students write down events and cut them all apart, and then they're gonna take turns putting those events in order while a timer beeps at them, telling them to move, 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 okay? I will link the full explanation for how to do that here. It's not super complicated, lots of movement, super fun. Next one is the Lucky Reading Game. This is from Anne-Marie Chase over at Senora Chase, and basically it's a whole class game, but the points are random. This is that lucky part, right? So I really like that aspect for a whole class game, because sometimes one group is just totally dominating and then the engagement just dies because they just are like, downtrodden and sad. So the luck aspect to it makes it a lot more engaging. She has a full blog post and slides you can use to just use it with your classes. I will make sure to link to that in the description of the video below. The Unfair Game is another one from Martina Beck's, and it's really similar to the Lucky Reading Game in terms of, like, the points that are awarded are random. So you're gonna have students respond to questions or different scenarios, and then they get points awarded randomly. I'll link to that in the description as well. The next one is volleyball reading, or ping pong reading, sometimes it's called. Students work in pairs, or you can do small groups with, like, 2 and 2, or you can divide your class in half, this half, whatever it is. So one group is going to read in the target language. I was going to say in Spanish, but whatever language. So read in the target language. The other group translates it, then reads the next sentence in the target language. Translates it, reads the next sentence in the target language, back and forth. So that's kind of like the volleyball / ping pong piece of this. The next option you can do for this is called Speed Date Translate. And this is basically volleyball reading, but you're going to add a rotating timed element. So you have two pairs doing volleyball reading, and when the timer goes, one pair rotates and they pick up where they left off. Another activity you can do is called Write and Discuss. So after you've done a story, or after you've done like any sort of PQA or card talk or a movie talk or anything like that, you are basically going to summarize what just happened with your whole class. And as you are talking about it, you are either going to be typing it out where they can see it on the screen, or writing it out on the whiteboard. I prefer to type because then it's a lot easier to repurpose that text for other activities in the future. But it depends on if you have a projector that's available and all that sort of stuff. After Write and Discuss, you're going to take that text you used, and Mike Pito has the idea of using that Write and Discuss text to create cartoons for your classes. The next one is called Write, Draw, Tell, and Will shared this one with me. He says it's got 12 boxes on the sheet of paper, and in the middle 6, students illustrate scenes from the story. Up on the top 3, they're going to write the sentences that correspond. On the bottom 3, they're going to write the sentences that correspond. Then they're going to fold back the top and the bottom and just have the images to help them. Then they're going to do a retell of the story, but if they get stuck, they can flip up the back and peek at the sentences to help them. The last one that I have for you is called Writing Between the Lines. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to take a text that you've been working with and you're going to pull out chunks and sentences. And so you're going to leave your students with, like, you know, a sentence here and then blank lines, a sentence here and then blank lines and a sentence there, right? However much you want. You're going to give the students the text with the pieces removed and those blank lines, and their job is to fill in what happened in the story in between the lines, writing between the lines. Okay, that was a lot. Hopefully, though, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is super overwhelming. Hopefully it was like, oh my goodness, look at all these ideas and things that I can do in my classes. Yeah. Like I said, most of those ideas did not come from me. I tried to cite the people as I was going through them, but I will make sure to put links, names, and descriptions, all of that sort of stuff in the description below, so that way if you're like, hey, that sounded really interesting, I want to learn how to do that, or maybe grab, like, some of them have slides and that sort of thing for you to use and just like jump in right away, I will link to all the blog posts, video tutorials, all of that sort of stuff in the description of this video. I don't even know how many activities that was. Hopefully it'll be good. Your lesson planning is done for like the next 3 months. Alright, if there is anything that I missed in this video, you need to comment below and let me know what is one of your favorite activities to do with your classes. And if there's something that I mentioned that you're like, oh my gosh, yes, that is my favorite, comment below and let me know which one of these activities is your favorite to do in your classroom. I can't wait to hear from you. If you liked this video, please remember to give this video a thumbs up to let YouTube know you liked it, or if you didn't like it because it was too fast, or, you know, whatever the case may be, give it a thumbs down. If you haven't yet, make sure you click subscribe and ring that bell to get notified of all new content that I create for you in the future. Oh, and if you liked these activities and you want to hear more about any of them, check out the playlist that I have here for you. This one, right here. It's my playlist on reading activities. So if you like this video, that's a playlist full of activities, kind of like these, but more in depth. So it's not like this whirlwind sprint, each one has an explanation. Yeah? Okay, I'll see you there.